So here's how a country goes from being the global empire to another country taking over that status. The most recent example in history is, of course, the British Empire, which for them started in 1846. That's when Britain got rid of something called the Corn Laws, and it converted to the religion of preaching free trade to the world. They're like, guys, we won the game. Let's not cheat anymore and let's sell stuff to each other at fair market prices. And all the other countries are like, yeah, well, you're saying that now after you cheated. Hamiltonian economics, right? High tariffs, subsidies, protective policies. So now you don't want anyone else to cheat. Okay. Now, by 1931, Britain stopped being the global empire. Why? That's because Britain slowly deindustrialized, meaning their factories closed, industry moved to other countries, and by 1931, the British Empire was done. The global leadership was transferred to the US, and it became the global superpower. That process took about 85 years, and it's why most people don't really notice this happening. But it's happening to the US right now. And for the US, it started in 1971. That's the year that the dollar came off the gold standard, which eventually led to factories leaving the US. Now, here's a question though. Why do factories have to leave? Like, why does this deindustrialization process have to happen? And it happens because of something called securitization. It's when a country creates a paper market for itself, which means for that country, more and more of its income starts to come from shuffling paper around instead of making real things. Now, all empires eventually financialize their economies by creating stock markets and financial products. But in doing so, that creates all the structural incentives for the beginning of the end of their empire. Because when you financialize, you're like, let's increase the value of our country. How do we do that? Forget about building things. That takes money and risk. It's expensive. I have a better idea. Let's buy our own stuff, like our own stocks. That's what's known in the stock market as share buybacks. And also, let's increase our income. How do we do that? By lowering our costs. Let's use cheaper parts imported from somewhere else, and let's not give the job to the American worker because they're expensive. Give it to someone in another country that makes less. Boom, factories leave, stock prices go up, you become richer and richer on paper, and as you were doing it, you were stripping the nation of its ability to make stuff. And given a long enough period of time, like over 85 years of doing that, you become naked. You have no capacity to build things like weapons to defend yourself with, and if and when a conflict breaks out, where you're supposed to protect your own country's interests, you're left exposed because you can't. You're rich with your own made up funny money, but you've got nothing real that's left of your economy. And the people who make your stuff for you, they're your adversary. And your enemy is not going to take your funny money to build bombs for you so you can police the world. Okay, but in giving up this industry, what does a country get in return? What we got is infinite choice to buy lots of different brands, and we can buy stuff for cheap, right? Here's how that looks like. Since the year 2000, the price of TVs went down 98%. The price of toys went down 74%. Software went down 73%. But everything that couldn't be shipped from China, that went the other way. That's why housing went up 111%. Childcare went up 159%. College tuition went up almost 200%. Hospital services went up 281% because that's the trade we made. America was sold off and we hollowed out the economy from the inside, and the asset owners got richer on paper. Consumers got unlimited choices to buy cheap stuff, and in exchange, the sovereign, or the nation itself, gave up its industrial base and the kind of high-paying jobs that used to let one income buy a house. Right? That's what happens to an empire when it financializes its economy for almost 100 years. So now the US is looking around and we're like, wait, stop. How do we Command Z undo this? Like, how do we get our stuff back?
It's going to come back. It's going to come roaring back. It's all going to come roaring back. We're going to put tariffs on outside countries and outside people that really mean us harm. They want to, well, they mean us harm, but they basically want to make their country good. Look at what others do.
That's what the people in Trump's administration are trying to posture with. They're trying to go back to this Hamiltonian economic system. Okay, but how do we know that this is what they're really trying to do? And how we know this is because in January of this year, Jameson Greer, who's the US trade representative, gave a speech at Davos where he talked about the United States going back to that Hamiltonian economic system. And then 2 weeks later, the US attacked Iran, and the news cycle moved on and forgot about it. But then on June 23rd, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was in New York, and he put out that Wall Street op-ed paper, literally named Hamilton Inspires Trump's Economic Statecraft. And in that paper, he talked about 5 core principles of what he wants the US to do. The first one is economic security starts with national capacity, meaning we need to be able to make things again. We need factories. 2, America's openness will be matched by reciprocity, meaning if you let us sell our stuff in your country, you can sell your stuff in ours. Okay? 3, America will rewrite the rules of the next economy. That's fluff. I don't really know what that means. 4, financial leadership is a central instrument of statecraft, aka you better use our dollars and price your oil in them, and buy our treasuries and our stablecoins if we say so or else. And 5, economic statecraft must serve the American people, whatever that means. Now, all of this sounds really promising, but it creates a problem. Because from those 5 principles, it means the US is trying to do 3 things: rebuild the factories, protect the people of Main Street, and keep the dollar strong. Now, according to Luke Gromen from FFTT, he says that those things cannot be true at the same time. You can't rebuild American industry and put Main Street first and keep the dollar as strong and overvalued as it is today. You can only pick 2 of them, and you have to sacrifice one. For example, if you want to rebuild the factories, aka bring back the jobs and wages, and protect the people of Main Street, aka keep prices low, then the dollar has to come down a lot, because it's the expensive dollar that makes American factories uncompetitive in the first place. So you lose the strong dollar. There's no other way. Now, if you want to protect Main Street and keep the dollar strong, that means cheap imports keep flooding in and factories never come back. That's literally the deal that America's been running for the last 50 years. So you lose the factories and it becomes impossible to reindustrialize. Now, if you want to rebuild the factories and keep the dollar strong, then the only way American industry can compete against cheap imports is if you wall it off with huge tariffs paid by consumers, which means prices go up on everything. Inflation goes up, and the cost of living eats society alive. It's a triangle where you can only pick 2. You have to give one up. And according to Luke Gromen, he says Scott Bessent is way too smart not to know this. And he's already told us more or less which one of those 3 he's going to give up. And the one he's most likely going to give up is going to be the dollar. Except there's a really clever way of doing it, which is to use another asset as an escape valve. Something that is a neutral reserve asset. An asset that is not one country's currency, and something that can absorb the dollar's price adjustment without blowing up the current economic system. And there's really only one asset on Earth with a couple thousand years of experience doing that, which is of course gold. Which brings us back to China.